get that. And Bardella, a younger one, Bardella is, you know, maybe the next candidate, and he's very different. He's much more attuned to what is happening in the States, you know, and it has consequences. She's pushed to be that hard because she's fighting for political survival.
And is it too early or too late for there to be a credible opponent for 2027 from the mainstream parties?
Yeah, no, it's not too late because Bardella is young. It's not that he's very popular, but he's really young. And we had a young president, and people are kind of dissatisfied with this young president. And you have to understand that the voters in France, they are leaning increasingly on the right and the far right, but they are still old, and they want to preserve a kind of, you know, a stable situation. And they may not be willing to vote for a young candidate that they don't really know anything about. And so there is a place for a mainstream candidate, absolutely.
Hinh Nguyen, people saying, oh, what happens in the United States, could it happen here?
You mean the riots and the...
No, I mean that we have a far-right president who pushes the levers and pushes how much authority they have.
Yeah, absolutely. I think we're very close to that option, not just in France, but in other European countries as well. And it asks a question, and going back to your question about mainstream parties, what credible option is there? Are we able to actually build a strong candidacy by then, like a unified candidacy that's going to be able to stand up to those options? I don't really see it in France. It's going to be a very difficult 2027 cycle for us. But going beyond that, I think this is also something that ties us back to the topic for today's debate, which is liberal democracy and the traditional political system that we've been having for a couple of hundreds of years in Europe and the West. What is the future of liberal democracy? And I think today it's fair to say that it's not going to be the same as what we've seen thus far.
Robert Weissman, the election in 2024, that issue of liberal democracy, Kamala Harris put it on the ballot. People's eyes sometimes glazed over. They instead said that they were more concerned about inflation and thought Trump would do a better job there. If you were to give advice to the French mainstream candidates for 2027, what is the issue you would tell them to run on?
Well, I can give advice maybe better for American candidates. I don't think it's the case that Americans rejected democracy in the 2024 election. I don't think it's the case that Kamala Harris centered her campaign around that at all, actually. I think when we see polling in the United States, people do care about democracy. They want a democracy that works for them. And part of what that means is they need to see a democracy that delivers responsively to what people want, not to what big corporations demand. So I think the path forward is coupling not just the defense of democracy, but a deepening democracy with a substantive agenda that's responsive to people. People in the United States ask, if 90% of the country supports lowering drug prices, which is the case, how come it doesn't happen? And they know what the answer is. The answer is big pharma has too much political power. So for them, a working democracy has to not just have the mechanism of a formal democracy, but also has to deliver and not be captured by big corporate interests. And to me, that's the path forward, a deep commitment to an expanded and deepened and more profound democracy, and a commitment to deliver an agenda that works for everyday people. I have to think that's a message that works in France and around the world. I know it's the right message for the United States.
We're out of time, Andrew Weissman. Do you agree?
I do, and I think one advantage that you have in France is you have a history that makes you more aware of the evils of authoritarianism that, we haven't had that history in the United States. So I think you have an electorate that is more educated about those concerns.
We'll have to leave it there, unfortunately. Many thanks for being with Andrew Weissman. I want to thank Hinh Nguyen, Philippe Moreau-Chevrolet, Robert Weissman in Washington, D.C. Thank you for being with us here in the France 24.
It was the middle of the day, then pulled down his trousers and forcibly removed mine. And he did horrible things to me. Then he threatened me, if you tell anyone, your teacher or your family, I'll kill you.
We were often beaten up. If they gave us an order, we had to obey without delay. It was as if they were the masters and we were their slaves.
Madrasas, as we know, are what we call in Urdu a gad, means a real powerful hold, and where abuse is happening all the time. We know that.
I want justice to be done. If he is severely punished, all the madrasas will be afraid of abusing a child.
Pakistan, broken innocence, an investigation into sexual violence in the madrasas. Watch our special documentary on France 24 and France24.com.
Pra, trëndafili që përdoret për aromë, trëndafili që përdoret për gatim, trëndafili që përdoret dhe për mjekësi, për është kurativ. Pra, kështu është jeta këtu, tamam si një trëndafili. E kemi marrë traditë dhe neve nga ato që e kam përdorur në të gjitha festat familjare. Si për lindje, si për fejesa, si për dasma, gjithashtu edhe për gëzim familjar për një ditë lindje.
Welcome to the Daily Show. My name's Jon Stewart. I'm going to tell you something. Their enthusiasm is not for naught. We have a great show for you tonight. Stephen A. Smith is going to be joining me later. We're going to get a full Tony's rundown. But first, I want to talk about this very briefly. I was in Los Angeles over the weekend getting BBL from a celebrity doctor. And quick question, for those of you who live in that area, is your city ever not on fire? Whether you win a basketball championship, a World Series championship, whether you have an exploding piñata gender reveal gone wrong, congratulations, it's a boy and an evacuation. Or you're just protesting the Trump administration's expanded deportation raids, LA continues to be our most flammable city. This weekend's combustion was the very predictable result of a liberal city reliant on an immigrant population colliding with a heavy-handed MAGA migrant trawling operation looking to hit its quota of brown Pokemon. Gotta catch them all. Yes, America. This is where we started.
We got to get the criminals out first. We got to get the criminals, the murderers, the drug dealers.
And this is where we are now.
Protests started following ICE raids at the Home Depot parking lot in Paramount, south of the city.
Home Depot. From the worst of the worst to a f***ing Home Depot? Geez, ICE, if you need assistance in arresting people, you know, those guys are looking for work, so. It's an explosive situation on the cusp of federalism versus states' rights, border control versus due process, terrifyingly militarized sweeps versus hardworking people in local communities, the United States Marines versus the Postmates guy who brought you an egg sandwich. It's going to require a deft and firm, experienced and wise. I think you know where I'm going with this. A deft touch from leadership in Washington.
Well, we're going to have troops everywhere. We're not going to let this happen to our country. They spit. That's their new thing. And when that happens, I have a little statement. They say, they spit, we hit.
Well done, Mr. Churchill. When they spit, we hit. For the love of God, someone protect Hawk Tuah girl. Now, obviously, this is a bit of a change in attitude from Trump towards protecting law enforcement from his previous January 6th attitude of, they hit, we don't give a shit. So why this escalation?
Top Trump aide Stephen Miller.
Oh. What is it young Lord Vader wanted?
Stephen Miller held a meeting screaming at ICE officials to arrest more undocumented immigrants.
Yeah, that sounds like him. Although I'm pretty sure Stephen Miller wasn't screaming. I think it's just his default tone is banshee. It's what happens when oxygen molecules are desperate to exit his unholy lungs. So it just comes out like, "Get them!"
Miller setting a new quota of 3,000 arrests per day to include more than just migrants with criminal records.
Miller reportedly asked ICE officials, hey, why aren't you at Home Depot?
And don't say because they're not bothering anybody down there, because they're bothering me.